The pipeline will only be advanced with the following prerequisites being met. The first is the building of pathways, renamed the Oil Sands Alliance. This is the world's largest carbon capture, utilization, and storage project. It will make Alberta oil amongst the lowest carbon intensity per barrel produced, in other words, on a Scope 1, Scope 2 basis. Secondly, it requires that British Columbians should share substantial economic and financial benefits from projects that include or impact them. And thirdly, it requires fully respecting Canada's duty to consult under Section 35 of the Constitution.
Canada may be heading toward one of its biggest and most debated projects, but there's a major catch. Before anything can move forward, Carney has set tough conditions that could change everything. What's hidden behind these demands is paying close attention. Prime Minister Mark Carney stood before the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade and delivered the most detailed public account yet of what a new West Coast oil pipeline would require to receive federal approval. 5 days after signing an implementation agreement in Calgary with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith targeting a construction start as early as September 2027, Carney traveled to Vancouver to address the province that the pipeline must physically cross, and laid out 3 conditions that he described as prerequisites, not preferences. The proposed pipeline is designed to carry 1 million barrels per day of Alberta oil sands crude to the British Columbia coast for loading onto tankers bound for Asian markets. That volume would more than double the capacity currently available through Trans Mountain, which operates at approximately 590,000 barrels per day at near full utilization since its expansion reached commercial operation in 2024. The pipeline has no agreed route, no confirmed private sector proponent, and no regulatory approval. What it now has, following the May 15th implementation agreement and Carney's May 20th Vancouver remarks, is the clearest federal framework for how it could proceed. Carney told the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade that the pipeline project will only proceed with the creation of the Pathways Carbon Capture Project. He said British Columbians should share substantial economic and financial benefits from the project, and that the duty to consult First Nations under Section 35 of the Constitution Act is non-negotiable. Those 3 conditions, the Pathways Carbon Capture Project, substantial BC economic benefits, and Section 35 Indigenous consultation, are sequential requirements, not parallel preferences. The Pathways Alliance is a $16.5 billion carbon capture, utilization, and storage initiative involving Canada's 6 largest oil sands producers. It would capture CO2 from 13 oil sands facilities and transport it through approximately 600 kilometers of pipeline to underground storage south of Cold Lake, Alberta. Carney has stated the Pathways project and the pipeline are mutually dependent. The federal government will not advance a project of national interest designation for the pipeline without confirmed industry commitment to the CCUS investment. As of May 20th, that commitment has not been made by the Oil Sands Consortium. The Section 35 consultation requirement carries constitutional weight that no political negotiation can override. Under Section 35 of the Constitution Act, 1982, the federal crown has a legal duty to consult with and, where appropriate, accommodate Indigenous groups before approving projects that may adversely affect their treaty rights or Aboriginal title. A pipeline carrying 1 million barrels per day through British Columbia's interior and coastal territories crosses the traditional lands of multiple First Nations. Carney was explicit that this consultation is not a regulatory formality. It applies to the national interest designation itself, to the conditions attached to that designation, and to the economic partnership and co-ownership arrangements that must accompany the project. The BC Economic Benefits Condition addresses the specific political dynamics that make British Columbia the central obstacle in the pipeline's regulatory pathway. BC Premier David Eby met with Carney in a closed-door session in Vancouver on May 20th, immediately following the Board of Trade remarks. Eby has publicly opposed the pipeline framework, saying the federal government should not be rewarding Alberta's separatist behavior and that Ottawa should prioritize projects that BC is actively advancing. His position entering the meeting was that economic development must be aligned with environmental protection, a framing that BC's government has consistently applied to pipeline proposals affecting the province's coastline. Carney told the Board of Trade, "Look, we're the federal government. It's a big country. There's lots of things going on. Life's about time management. But if things get stalled here, we're going to be spending more time elsewhere in the country because we need to move forward. We need to invest at scale in the country. That statement carries a specific directional signal. The federal government has committed to designating the pipeline a project of national interest by October 1st, 2026, contingent on Alberta submitting a formal proposal to the Major Projects Office by July. First, 2026, Alberta's proposal requires a confirmed private sector proponent. No proponent has stepped forward as of May 20th. If the July 1st proposal is not submitted, the October 1st national interest designation cannot be issued. The September 2027 construction start, which CIBC World Markets analysts have already characterized as optimistic and reflective of a best-case scenario, depends on every preceding condition being met without slippage. The Oil Tanker Moratorium Act sits beneath all of these conditions as the most technically complex barrier. The Act restricts large crude oil tankers from stopping, loading, or unloading along British Columbia's northern coast. Alberta's preference is a northern port option, which offers a shorter shipping distance to Asian markets. That preference requires modifying or repealing the tanker moratorium, a federal legislative action that would face opposition from coastal communities, environmental organizations, and coastal First Nations, whose economies and cultures are tied to the waters the moratorium protects. The May 15th implementation agreement left open the possibility of adjusting the tanker ban if a pipeline is approved and Indigenous co-ownership and shared benefits are included. It did not specify how that adjustment would be made or what legislative vehicle would be used. Following the closed-door meeting with Carney, Premier Eby confirmed the two governments had agreed to enter formal negotiations on BC's economic priorities and Ottawa's role in national development projects. That agreement to negotiate is not an agreement on the pipeline. BC's energy minister has separately stated that Carney is making national pipeline deals without adequately involving other provinces, a position that reflects BC's frustration with an Ottawa-Alberta bilateral process that has advanced significantly without formal BC participation or endorsement. The pipeline project, as of May 20th, 2026, has an implementation agreement between Ottawa and Alberta, a federal commitment to national interest designation by October 1st, a targeted construction start of September 2027, a 1 million barrel per day design capacity, 3 non-negotiable federal conditions, no confirmed proponent, no agreed route, unresolved BC provincial opposition, active Indigenous resistance from coastal First Nations, and a tanker moratorium that requires legislative action to resolve. Alberta must submit its proposal within 41 days. The July 1st deadline is the same date as the CUSMA review deadline, the moment when Canada and the United States are expected to reach a resolution on the bilateral trade framework that governs the integrated North American economy. Both negotiations converge on the same calendar date. Canada's position at the CUSMA table is materially stronger when it can point to an active pipeline application